Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Ad Nastana. Welcome back to Points of Light Radio. I'm just getting ready to go to the lodge here. In today's segment, will be discussing some developments that I've been noticing lately with degrees. Right? First of all, I'm going to show you a quick clip here of something you saw here. I guess it would be on the October 1st, 2025 segment of Points of Light Radio. I want you to have a look at that, and then we'll move forward. We've talked about, one thing I did want to talk to you about, I did touch on this when we were kind of getting acquainted, and it ties in, of course, to brothers turning their backs on the lodge, is the one-day degree rallies with Freemasonry. Now, I understand this is spread because even Royal Arch Freemasonry is now having what's called degree festivals. So this is spread. But I've also heard the statistic that, statistically speaking, the people that come in during your one-day degree rallies, or whatever you call them, one day where they're raised from entered apprentice to master mason, the keeper rate among them is the same as the brothers who come in the traditional way. So what's your
I've seen numbers
on that?
I've seen numbers. I have a good brother, John Rourke, who is a member of the Masonic Roundtable podcast, and he took the task to actually try to gather data about this. And he was able to speak with a few Grand Lodges, speak with a few jurisdictions to see how it would show up in a graph. And just like you say, it didn't move the needle. It was impressive when it happened, right? So you can have a rally and we're gonna initiate these many people and we're gonna do all of this, and now our numbers have this artificial bump of membership. But think about the progression from entered apprentice to fellowcraft to master mason. It should be a journey of apprenticeship, literally, of being a companion and then eventually becoming a master. That doesn't happen overnight. And there is an ambition for the person that becomes initiated. Now they have some labor to do in the quarries before they are technically qualified to become a fellow craft. Is there an incentive? Like, you're already a master mason. Now you can travel, you can join the shrine, you can join other organizations. So is there really an incentive for that person to stay in the lodge?
Well, the way I see it, sometimes you
questionable.
might not have a choice. If your lodge is ready to close due to lack of
Yeah,
membership, you might not have a choice. On the other hand, you can you can cheapen it by bringing in 400 in a day, like I've
yeah,
heard that before. But also, if you don't follow those rallies up with further education, mentorship, which
exactly.
is something I've covered on a previous segment of Points of Light Radio, I think you'll agree you can't just have those rallies and then not follow up with these new members. You need to follow that up. And I think that's
Yeah,
one of the problems that we're
absolutely.
just bringing them in saying, okay, we got a bunch of new master masons sitting here. Let's get back to the way things were before. You can't do that.
Yeah. And think of this. Like, what do you want them for? Do you want them to come to the meeting that we already told you was boring? Right? You're gonna stuff it full of
Yeah.
people, all gonna be okay. This is not what I signed up for. Um, and also I think of, what are we really doing? If we really think about what's the whole purpose of becoming a Freemason,
Mhm.
and it's to take the rough form that of the stone that you are and progressively work at it to bring it to a more perfect state. You can't accelerate that process. It's not sustainable for you to, it's not realistic for you to expect that an individual joins a fraternity and now he is the best man you ever met. That What made him the best man you ever met? It's only the hard work of him recognizing what his flaws are, having the support of the other brothers, helping him become a better husband, a better business person, a better employee, whatever it is that they're looking to improve upon, unless they're diligent at chipping at that stone, they're not going to fit when they're brought over to the temple, so to speak. So if we look at masonry in the way that, okay, this is something for which I'm going to invest time so that I can become the best version of myself, there's no rush. Let's work at it. Okay, what did I learn in this step? How can I apply that to my family, to my business? All right, and then once you feel comfortable that you are dexterous enough with those tools that you provided, now you can start casting your gaze further along.
Mhm.
But until then, it's it's not it's I don't think it's a sustainable effort to see that as a as an adequate tool for increasing membership.
Okay. Now, then I heard this when I was interviewing another guest on Points of Light Radio. And now, which one of those degrees do you have to have in order to be a Grand Master of your lodge?
You have to be a third degree, but
Okay.
that's actually they changed the degree structure within the last couple of years where you get all three of your charity, unity, fraternity degrees at one time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's not been received well by many members, but that's just something that the Ivory Tower decided to do, so that's what they did. It
Okay.
membership growth within Knights of Columbus has been kind of stagnant as late as we see in most other fraternities,
Okay.
where so in order to get people in, you get them in, and then they actually introduce a degree video as well into doing the live degree as well. So you would show them a 27-minute video. It's unavailable on YouTube if you want to watch it as well. And it explains the basics of the old 1, 2, 3 charity, unity, and fraternity degrees, kind of hits the highlights of it. The only thing we used to keep secret was our degree work. But now we've since the change, you can bring your wife, your son, your daughter, or anyone you want to come witness the degree work.
So that's our topic today of discussion here on Points of Light Radio. Okay. These developments that you're seeing with degrees, I'm going to bring some other guests on who are very familiar with fraternalism. So let's see how we feel about this that when we're finished uh, interviewing everybody, okay? I don't know about you, but I'm kind of nervous about what I'm seeing. I have some thoughts on that. Let me give you a look at a discussion me and Mr. McCool had from the Coolest Life podcast. Let me show you a clip of the discussion we had on degrees, their meaning and importance. Yeah, and it is funny because we're talking about that at one of our last meetings. We were talking about our one of the organizations I belong to, our Purple Arch degree, and we're sitting around talking about that. Some of us guys who'd been through it, and we're kind of because there's a couple of guys that are supposed to be going through it soon, and we're not really telling the whole thing about it, but we're talking inside stuff, and they're kind of.
Sure.
But we have that common bond. Those
Right.
degrees, and I think that is one of the things about the degrees. Although they've changed meaning in some ways down through the years, they still have that core value to them that you
Correct.
learn so much from that degree. Wouldn't you agree? Like you learn so
Absolutely.
much. A good degree, I always talk about, and if you've watched my podcast, you'll see that where I talk about a good degree gives you a lesson, not just for the lodge, but for your life.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
and I think you'll agree with me. You get a message when you go through it yourself, and then if you're like me, sometimes you've had the opportunity to observe others going through it, and you pick something else up from you, and then you bring a
Absolutely.
brother through the degree.
Uh-huh.
Like, whoa, there's more. Like, you wouldn't think. Like, wow, I learned so much from that.
And then there's the next step, which would be you're the one putting the degree on. So here you are trying to memorize those those moral
Yeah,
gifts that you're giving this new guy, and you really get some true belief and I don't know what's well, I'm looking for the word. It really hits that message home when you
yeah,
start to memorize it and you're actually performing that degree. I mean, it's the next step to me. I mean, definitely going through it. Normally, it's like drinking from
it
a
comes at you very
fire
fast.
hose. Yeah, but there's just so much, especially initially going through any of those organizations
Mhm.
within masonry. But then once you see it, as you mentioned, once you see it, it's like, oh, okay, I didn't catch that last time. But then once you start performing it, oh my gosh, it just blows up and your mind goes, wow. And then, of course, the next step after that would be your philosophers who are writing books about masonry and they're talking about
Yeah,
this true meaning here goes this direction. And if you want to take that fourth step, that's fine. But I really like that third step.
it
you
is.
know,
Yeah, it is incredible. And like I said, you don't just get it and it ends there. There's so much messaging from it that'll come up to you afterwards, and it's a beautiful thing. But who better to offer his opinion on any fraternal matter here on Points of Light Radio is Owen Snowden. We all know him from numerous appearances here. Let's hear what he has to say. Mhm.
Well,
Now, I understand, that times have changed. The meaning of our degrees have changed and things. But, like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that? Because I personally feel that the degrees are for you. That's why we bring you in. That's why we, so they're for you. They're not for your friends and your family. They're for you, and that's basically where I go with that. And do you feel that we should maybe maintain the secrecy of these things? It either has meaning or it doesn't. To me, that's
I feel like secrecy within like the rituals and ceremonies should stay secret because it always like Freemasonry has thrived on that. People are always curious of what that degree holds and what Freemasonry is all about. And
But I think
it's
you'll agree with me. Like, one of the reasons for that secrecy is the degree is for you.
mhm.
It's not for anybody else. It's part of that message that we're trying to give you. And it helps us focus that message on you. There's other people present. We can't really do justice to that. You agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. You must keep it like private,
Yeah.
because it's
Yes.
such an important thing for that
That's
individual to
like
go through.
bringing sometimes when you're dealing even with your kids or a coworker and you want to take them aside and have a conversation with the conversation is for them. It's not for everyone else. I never understood that, and I think you'll agree. We do we do need to maintain the secrecy of that.
Totally.
Now, this next guest is part of an organization that is evolving their degrees and rituals in the what I feel is the right direction, and that's Jeffrey Bronner. Okay, he's the Tagataho of the Fraternal Order of Moai, or also known as the president. But yeah, let's see what they're doing because they're obviously moving in the right direction. Now, you mentioned the ritual. I can remember it now. Is there a degree system to the Fraternal Order of Moai, or are they, if they're...
There is. So, and we actually added a new degree this year as part of our 20th anniversary
Okay,
celebration. So
good.
that was one of the things we did as part of that. Essentially, there's 4 degrees right now. The first degree is the initiate. So that's someone who's joined and is in the
Mhm.
process of becoming a full member. We consider that a degree. That's a degree that you can fail and lose because if you fail to complete the process, that degree goes away and you start over. And then fellow Moai, any member of the order in good standing has the second degree. And then we have 2 degrees above that. So, and those degrees are the ones, if you've seen photos of our activities, you'll see that we have blue fezzes that we wear. And there's a degree that wears the blue fez, and then there's a new degree that wears the different blue fez that was created this year.
And how long would it take to reach you each of these?
The membership process to join the prospective member has the ability to sort of go through a process with some deadlines where they can speed it up or slow it down based on how well they want to hit those deadlines. So they can move faster if they want to, but that takes about 5 months at maximum. So it's a process that's there to sort of let people decide if this is what they want to do and let us see that they're committed. Um, It takes a little while to reach the third degree, Hanui, and wear the fez, and that's a process where we want to make sure someone would be a good representative of the organization, because those are the most visible people at a public event. They're wearing that fez. People know they're a member, and so you want to be sure that is the right choice and that they're ready for that. And so that is quite variable. That can take quite a while. And then the fourth degree, you actually have to be a Hanui Moai in good standing for 10 years to even be eligible for it. So we created that degree this year,
Right.
and most of the people that were awarded that have been members for quite a while.
Is there a little ceremony for each one?
There are.
Good. Yeah, that's excellent. And how long do you think, would you say the ceremonies are? Anywhere like an hour? Or?
It varies. Most of those rituals, the first few are fairly short. I'd say 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 at most. The newest one is a little more ornate, and so that one's probably closer to 30 to 40 minutes.
And how do you find them? Like, do you find because I've always said, my favorite saying is, good degrees don't give you a lesson just for the order, it gives you a lesson for life. Do you find they do that?
I think they do. I think, the third degree is designed to be a little bit of a degree where you don't necessarily know how to get there, right? It's a little bit of an exercise in patience, and whereas the fourth degree has very specific criteria, and they're criteria that tie directly into our values. And so to an extent, it's a process of saying, you've been a member, you're a member in good standing at a higher level, you've been doing that for 10 years. Are you living our values? How well are you doing those things? And, it's an opportunity for people to reflect and think a little bit about, hey, there's some things I should be doing before pursuing this degree.
So we've had an interesting discussion here, brothers and sisters, right? Now, when it comes to degrees, you've heard me say this in various other segments of Points of Light Radio, that I personally, I'm not entirely opposed to evolving our degrees. Prime example, degree rallies, okay? And virtual degrees. When the need presents itself, sometimes, yes, you do have to do that, right? However, having said that, we need to keep the degrees and the rituals secret, right? They have meaning or they don't. And as you heard me say during this segment, the message you get in a degree ceremony is meant for you, right? It's your brothers and sometimes brothers and sisters within that lodge that are trying to impart a message to you. They're focusing on you, right? And we cannot properly focus that message when you've got friends and relatives in the room observing. I seriously believe that, right? And as you've heard me talk to Mr. McCool about how the secrecy of degrees leads to a common bond, you're not going to feel that bond, right? If everyone else knows about what the message you just got, right? And if you are in a position of leadership within any of these fraternal organizations, these more esoteric ones, you should do something to kind of influence away from changing our degrees in such a way that you cheapen their value and eliminate the secrecy of it, right? However, it was great to hear Mr. Bronner talk about how they have developed the degrees, right, and evolve their degrees within the Fraternal Order of Moai, right? And obviously it's working because they're adding new chapters, right? They've added one up here in Canada, in fact, right? Now times change, right? But as you've heard, the core message is for the recipient, right? Right? And if we're going to evolve our degrees, let's evolve them in such a way that they preserve their value, their messaging, and their meaning. And that's all we have for you today, brothers and sisters. Before I go, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome your comments and input. You can see the link to my PayPal in the details section of this segment. You can hit on that link, make a voluntary donation to Points of Light Radio. We will use that to move the podcast forward. My Facebook handle is at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. My Bluesky handle is at polightradio.bsky.social. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, I appreciate your viewership, and remember the message that you heard here today about maintaining the value of our degrees. And until we meet again, just step into the light.